on, Jerry. Get excited. We gave you beer. Welcome to Pop Sports.
All right, welcome to an episode of Pop Sports here with Drew, Jerry, and Alex behind the glass, always making the magic happen. Thank you for that, Alex. My favorite songs. Nice Black Dog from Led Zeppelin. So, Jerry, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How you doing?
Hey, 6 feet above instead of 6 feet under, so we're doing okay,
What type of episode is this going to be?
This
Andrew?
is a pop culture episode of Pop
Crazy.
Sports, right? Well, with all the sports stuff going on lately, a lot of big stuff. We had the Super Bowl. We got the Bruins trade deadline coming up. The Red Sox are starting to kick back in. So, it's been a pretty crazy sports packed couple of months.
Yep.
So we're going to take some time here and look at some big news actually happening in kind of the geekosphere, if you want to call it that.
Geekosphere. I
The
like it.
geekosphere, which is with Netflix here.
Alex, work on a trademark.
Trademark. Check it. But first, before we get started here, let's thank our sponsors. Oh, yeah. Oh, bummer. First, Bellman Jewelers, located at 1650 Elm Street at Bellman's. It's always a matter of trust, Jerry.
Always. Always a matter of trust.
We also have, at 1650 Elm Street, King's Barbershop, because of Kings, live like a king. And that's located where, Jerry?
The Penthouse.
The Penthouse Suite. It's fantastic. You're going to love it. Check it out. Great view. It's like Mar-a-Lago, but in Manchester. It's fantastic. Also, we have Blake's Restaurant and Creamery with two locations.
Dose.
At 353 South Main Street and 53 Hooksett Road, both in Manchester, New Hampshire.
Yes.
Thanks for that, Alex.
Very well timed. As
So,
always.
anyways, thank you to our sponsors, as usual. And we're just going to dive right into it because there's some big news that happened this week. This has been, it looks like the writing's been on the wall for this for a while, but the Marvel Universe in Netflix is no more.
The Marvel TV Universe.
Prepare to be astonished.
We are not astonished. We are disappointed.
And we saw it coming.
And we saw it coming, which is unfair. But what we're alluding to is Marvel, they started this, Marvel started this kind of universe in Netflix where they had, first they had Daredevil,
first, yep.
and then they had Jessica Jones,
Jessica Jones, Luke Cage,
Iron Fist, Defenders, and then
Punisher.
the Punisher. Mm-hmm. So there were a lot of shows that were coming out on
together.
Netflix. They had some pretty solid ratings and reviews.
Yeah.
They were getting some good viewership from it.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, they started dropping like flies.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen all of them except for the second season of Luke Cage I didn't see. But they were pretty good shows. I thought they were pretty solid.
They were good quality. Good quality,
They were.
good storylines. They did a good job keeping characters, and I don't really have a good explanation on the entertainment front as to why it didn't. Why they canceled them.
Yeah, it was surprising.
We dug a little deeper, and it's not even that deep, quite frankly. It's pretty out there. So shows our detective reporting.
Yeah, that's true. Hey,
our
hard nose.
capabilities there.
You know it. But yeah, it was a little surprising that they started dropping like flies, though. It started with Iron Fist after season 2.
Which was the better of the two seasons.
That's
it showed
true,
some
yes.
clear improvement. It looked like it was...
It was a much better season.
Yeah.
So it was kind of surprising to see that one get axed pretty quickly afterwards, when it was definitely a better season than the first one.
Mm-hmm.
And then I believe...
Then there were rumors that they just weren't going to do another Defenders.
Yep,
And
that
then it was
started swirling.
Quickly followed by Luke Cage
Yep.
not getting renewed.
Luke Cage got axed, and then...
we had been sitting on that news for at least a couple weeks, if not a month, of, well, if all this is happening, if they're not doing a Defenders, how are they really going to do it? There was talk maybe a new show would come up, Heroes for Hire, and it would be Luke Cage and Iron Fist, and maybe that's what they were building towards. But then recently we found that... Recently, they just released that they will not be renewing Daredevil or Jessica Jones for their next seasons coming up. Or the Punisher.
Right.
And that's kind of where we're at. And it seems that they're headed towards closing their relationship as a whole with Netflix. So there will be no more shows, as you can see on screen. it looks like they're essentially terminating their relationship with Netflix, Disney as a whole, in terms of their Marvel Cinematic and TV universes.
Which is interesting because the Punisher series itself had it had a pretty high following.
Yeah.
The first season that came out had good reviews. Its ratings were fantastic. Out of all the seasons of the Marvel shows that Netflix put out, I thought probably season 1 of Punisher was the best, if not,
It was up there.
1, 2 with some of the other, couple other ones. But it was kind of surprising. Although I am just wrapping up season 2, and I can see how it might have lost some popularity. Initially, the storyline was good. It drew you in pretty quick. But then they had 2 different competing storylines, and it started trying to jump from one to another, and it got kind of convoluted and
got a little messy, and that probably had to do with them rushing through a storyline, knowing impending they were going to get canceled.
Yeah.
So that's what I think. I think it got jumbled then, and it makes sense. It sucks, but that's just kind of how it happened. And it appears as though they're hinting at, or not hinting at, Disney is coming up with their own streaming service.
Right.
And it's going to have all of the Marvel movies and all of upcoming new Marvel shows that they're going to want to start posting and whatever. It's going to be all, the entire MCU. Any TV show they want to start is going to be on Disney's own streaming service. So they wanted to wipe out all of the competition on Netflix.
Right. And
sucks.
Alex, if you want to bring up the post by John Brenthall, the guy who plays the Punisher, it was a nice little post he had on his Instagram page. But man, he is freaking phenomenal in that role. Have you seen any of the Punisher seasons?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
Brenthall's
he
kills it.
is unreal. He is the definition of the Punisher.
Yeah.
Like, he just kills it. He brings all the emotions. Great acting in that role.
What do you got?
Do you need me to read this?
Yeah, do you mind reading it for us?
Sure.
Read aloud.
To all who have served, all who know loss, all who love and understand Frank and his pain. It has been an honor to walk in his boots. I'm endlessly grateful to this comic fans and the men and women of this armed services and law enforcement community who Frank means so much to. Thank you to the USMC, to all the wonderful soldiers who trained me. Go hard, be safe.
I thought that was a nice little tribute by him. I thought it was kind of
I mean,
cool.
is the show totally canceled? Can
Yeah.
it just
Yes.
not be somewhere else?
No.
Is Marvel going to pull it and make their own?
So this
is Marvel's. This
Right.
is
No,
Marvel's
what I'm
show.
saying is, are they going to pull their deal with Netflix, start their own streaming service? Are they going to
So
sell
this
out
is
to
where
Disney?
it gets a little interesting. So actually, there are some different reports that are kind of throwing out rumors or speculation that Hulu might actually be interested in trying to pick up these shows, because I guess Hulu and Marvel, from what I was reading, actually have a very good relationship with one another. So that could be interesting if Hulu decides to get in on that game.
It would be interesting in a few different ways, because it would seem like it would undermine what Disney's trying to do. Because for those who don't know, I suppose, Disney is the one that owns all of Marvel and Marvel properties. So anything that is done by Marvel, it is a Disney film or show.
And for anybody that doesn't know, Avengers is Marvel. So, Captain America, Iron Man, all those guys, Thor, that's Marvel. DC is, the group like Batman, Wonder Woman, Superman,
Flash,
that
yeah.
type. So
Why? So there's no reason for Marvel to make that deal then, because they're owned by Disney. Disney's going to have its own streaming service, so they'll just pay and create the shows themselves.
So the only thing that could be done is if their streaming service isn't ready to go by a certain time,
Right.
and
They
they
just
want to
keep it
continue the
going.
shows,
So they keep
could
the
put
fan
them on
popularity.
Hulu for the interim, knowing that Hulu's not going to.
Then they shouldn't have pulled out of the deal with Netflix. They should have just kept going until they were ready.
I think it was a stopping point. It was a stopping point issue. It was their contract was up, and they could either renew or cancel them. So they canceled them. And there is a clause in all of the actors' contracts that they can't play the character in another film or show for 2 years, outside of Disney's strict permission.
yeah, it's a weird.
It's
Yeah,
a
but
really
they
weird
could stay with Disney. So if
They are with
they
Disney.
switch
They
to Hulu,
could.
no, that's what I mean. So if they switch to Hulu, it's still Disney. So they'll just stay on the show and they'll restart the whole show with all the same cast.
Right, but it gives Disney the option to go forward with them,
Right.
or cancel them outright and just bury the characters.
Right, because nobody can use them
For
at
2
all. For
years,
2 years,
yeah.
yeah. So Disney basically holds all the cards for this at this
Yep.
point,
Yeah,
because it's their entity. Netflix was basically borrowing it from Disney.
yeah.
Essentially. So it was kind of interesting that all these shows started to get canceled. One of the things that really kind of struck me and I thought was interesting was these shows had a lot of kind of more violence and a little bit of a darker side to them.
It had the more rated R side
Yeah.
than any of the Disney movies.
Yeah, it was more of like a
would be willing to
PG-13 to R kind of range, especially Punisher. Oh, yeah.
Even Daredevil at times.
And
was really
Daredevil at
teetered with
times.
that.
But the thing that strikes me is that the Arrowverse on the CW, like Supergirl, Arrow,
Flash,
Legends of Tomorrow,
It's
they are
DC's TV universe.
so that's but that's actually on cable TV on the CW. So they can't get away with a lot of the stuff Netflix could based on violence and different stories and stuff like that. I find it very interesting that they are still extremely successful and they're even adding shows.
Yeah.
Like they now have a new Batwoman pilot coming out, so they're looking to add that as a new show. They just made that show Black Lightning 1 or 2 seasons ago. I haven't seen it yet, but
I haven't tuned in for that one either.
It's interesting that you see Netflix is doing this while you see something on cable TV that's absolutely killing it.
Yeah.
So if anything, I thought Netflix would have the upper hand and the CW's Arrowverse would hurt, and it's the complete opposite, which I thought was very interesting.
I think one thing that the CW benefited from was having a certain demographic. The CW tends to have a bit more of the angsty teen kind of demographic locked and loaded pretty much. And Arrow and Flash and Supergirl, those 3 specifically really played off of a lot of drama. And I think it really fit CW's whole mantra, what they were going for. But yeah, I mean, anytime they really stretch outside of that, which isn't even a stretch, anytime there's action or any violence, it really seems almost out of place. Yet it's still 3 of the better shows on the CW. 3 of the, like, CW actually at one point was becoming a bit of a joke. It seemed like it was just DC's TV network for a while.
Pretty much. Well,
Actually,
I mean, they were
still
killing
is.
it, so
I mean,
why not?
So, I mean, I totally get that it's weird to see Netflix with the big Marvel billion-dollar movie that they can put out time and time again, and DC struggles, yet their TV universe is absolutely crushing it.
Yeah. No, I thought that was, a very interesting comparison between the 2.
Yeah.
Hey, Alex, you want to switch them up?
Yeah, no problem.
Hey, thanks, Chief.
You want to? Why do you miss your face?
A little bit.
You just you afraid of the height of this camera?
Well, I
Is it
mean,
scaring you?
this dad bod, it's
getting
freaking
busy?
me out. It's freaking me out, man.
Oh, there you are.
I'm just sitting here
there's
and I'm
your
like,
beautiful face.
oh, God, look at this. I got to go to the gym. What the heck is going
there
on
you
here?
are, big guy.
I've been
There's your pretty
distracted.
face.
You got to get the dimples, man. It's all about
Jerry
the
gets
dimples.
distracted too. He loves looking into the camera at himself.
Hey,
Makes
you know,
him
it
happy.
happens. You have like 12 episodes and you become a diva. I don't know what to tell you.
He really has. He was awful before the show. The
Terrible.
the 2 followers we have should really know how terrible he was. He was just acting out demands. He already has things written into his thing. We have to have special Skittles. I mean, it's getting ridiculous, to be
Special
honest.
Skittles.
All green Skittles, nothing else.
That's true. Well, it's for
If
the
the
Green
hand
Lantern.
dye
yeah.
each one because they don't make green.
Exactly. There you go. Well, get on it.
Terrible.
Get on it. Get
It's
an intern.
ridiculous.
You need an intern for this.
We do need an intern.
Well, find one.
We got to hire. You work for the school. Hire one.
All right. I'll see what I can
Should
do.
we say what school? Should we call them out?
No,
we'll
that's
be good.
okay.
No,
That's
we'll leave it.
okay.
Not yet. It's not that
Yeah,
anyone
not yet.
knows. Or
Maybe,
Not
maybe
yet.
when they sponsor the show.
Yeah. Hopefully that'd be a nice fat paycheck. But yeah. So
Knock off
overall,
some
though,
tuition.
I guess the Marvel TV head Jeff Loeb hinted that all of these shows might not be entirely dead.
Which is
So that was kind of
Yeah.
interesting. So I mean, that was just a little tidbit I just want to end with.
there's
on
always
that
there's
kind of
always
portion.
been some weird, almost friction between the Marvel TV side and the Marvel movie side. I really go back to when Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was first kind of coming into its own, the show, on ABC, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And so that really started to take place simultaneously with the movies. They were going to have tie-ins. It was a big project, but it seemed like the movie producers never wanted to be in discussions with them. They never really wanted to help out, and they really pushed them away time and time again. And the big tipping point was around Captain America Winter Soldier, when S.H.I.E.L.D. disintegrated. They never ran that by the TV people. And so the whole basis of that show...
well, shit. What do we do?
Like, even now, it's still called Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., despite the fact that there's no S.H.I.E.L.D. Like, it's still a very funny, almost looking back at how dysfunctional that seemed.
Yeah. Well, I haven't seen it, so I have no idea. But
Right, and so they had to take some serious leaps and bounds in their storytelling. Now it just seems like they're almost making it up on the spot.
Yeah.
Which,
But still, it's still on air. It's still doing well.
It's a good product. Yeah. It's just not at all where they were going with that.
And it's weird that you see all of these examples of these shows that are doing well in a superhero base, and then Netflix just scraps all of these when they were doing okay.
When they were doing, at the very least, okay.
And that was kind of interesting. But another big news that comes with Netflix is the new movie Captain Marvel, which is coming out in March. March 8th is when it comes out. Is that Netflix has had all the rights to all of the Marvel movies thus far, whether it's Thor Ragnarok, Captain America, Avengers, Infinity War, all that stuff.
Anytime any of those films dropped, there'd be, I think, a week or two after they were out of theaters, Netflix gets first rights. That's always been the deal. But
yeah, so now Disney has decided that they are not going to sell Netflix the rights to stream it once it is out of theaters. And that's going to cost Netflix, that's going to cost Disney $150 million.
Yeah.
So what does Disney have up its sleeve? Why is it just deciding to piss all this money away?
Right.
$150 million. So the speculation is that they want to save that as the first Marvel movie that they're going to have exclusively streaming on Disney's new streaming service.
I still thought was funky because I always thought that having Infinity War Part 1 or Endgame would be the perfect intro to that streaming service. But to go with Captain Marvel, they're really putting a lot into this movie. There's currently a lot of pressure for this film to put up some amazing ratings and viewership for that reason.
Well, it's got a good critic score so far.
Of course it does.
Early
They pretty much bought Rotten Tomatoes at this point. But if this film were to fall flat, to have that be the first film that they're really pushing to be on their new service, they could really start off on the wrong foot here.
Oh yeah.
If people, I don't know what the reaction would be if, regardless about getting other films, be it DVDs or other streaming services, but it's just funny that that's what they're really making the biggest gamble on, despite the fact that Infinity War was by far the biggest film in their franchise, and Endgame is going to blow that out of the water.
Oh yeah. So if worse comes to worse, then if Marvel doesn't do as well as they thought, they
do have Endgame to rely on.
You do Endgame, and then you just sneak Captain Marvel in afterwards.
I guess, but I still thought it was a curious position to take.
Yeah.
That's pretty ballsy. Despite the fact the film, regardless, is going to probably hit $1 billion in sales because every film they do now hits $1 billion.
Oh my God, it's absolutely ridiculous how much money they make. Stupid amounts of money.
I would like to know the lowest grossing recent Marvel movie.
Oh my God.
Ever since Iron Man 3, I think they've all hit $1 billion or something.
Ant-Man and Wasp, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Jeez. But they're doing fine for themselves.
Oh, yeah. Don't feel bad that they're losing $150 million.
Yeah, but I just thought that was interesting. I was like, wow, that's a lot of freaking enchiladas, That's ridiculous.
You have real Mexican food theme.
I don't know. I'm kind of feeling Mexican tonight. I don't know. I kind of want some Mexican food.
I guess, but
I don't know. Hey, I'm just saying. With that, we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll take a look at the DC side of TV and movies. We'll be right back.
Julie means more to me than anything. And I wanted to ask you, before I ask her, may I have your permission to marry her?
Is this some sort of a joke? A mall store ring? Don't disrespect my mother like that. Take that thing back and go to Bellman Jewelers.
Shopping for a diamond at the mall? Don't bother. Even a 9-year-old knows the difference. Shop at Bellman Jewelers, 1650 Elm Street in Manchester, New Hampshire. Because at Bellman's, it's always a matter of trust.
All right, we're back. So after talking about Netflix's interesting decision-making, to say the least, over the last couple of weeks. Thanks, Alex. We're going to take a look at DC real quick before we wrap up the show. So one of the interesting things kind of going off of...
that's going to give me some hate mail.
Oh, is it now? Okay. So one of the interesting things going off of Netflix is that DC has actually had pretty successful run of its own shows.
Yes.
So this is
very
an
much
interesting,
so.
almost like oversaturation of this genre. You're getting shows popping up left and right that's superhero based, but DC has taken an interesting approach. So theirs is different than Netflix or any that have been on cable because they've gone a much, much darker route. The Titans series that they have on the DC streaming service now, very dark.
Did that start off on TNT or was it Fox? FX? I think it was one of those it started off on, but it's now...
TNT was starting to develop it, and then DC Universe decided to create its own streaming thing, and that's where it came from.
Okay, that makes sense.
But it's very dark. It's good. I enjoyed it. I've seen it. It's good. Very dark. So totally different twist on kind of what Marvel's doing, and it's worked. They had a lot of success with that new show, and now they just started coming off with a new kind of spin-off of that called Doom Patrol.
Yes.
Which they showed some of the characters in the first season of Titans, which was a pretty interesting transition. So they've actually been doing very, very well, and it's looking like they have a lot of new shows coming down the pipeline. I know they have a Swamp Thing in production right now.
There's a few other ones that are heavily rumored that they're spawning off now of this,
Yeah.
which would create almost like the second DC TV universes they're trying to go for right now, it seems.
Yep. So you got the Arrowverse on the CW, which is DC, and now you have this much darker route that the DC Universe streaming service is trying to do. And so I mean, I think it's going to be interesting. I've seen the first episode of Doom Patrol so far. It's got a very Deadpool-esque kind of feel to it.
Yeah, that's what everyone seems to really be going along those lines, and with a good comparison to make for. And it really does. It does have that kind of dark humor, not really afraid to kind of, test the boundary. And I really like that. I think that's a good model to go off of, especially if you're the first show in the superhero genre to really go into it, because Deadpool seemed to set a different standard for what you can do with superheroes.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And it's nice to see that someone out there with superhero shows and abilities is going for it. So I'm a fan. I think it's going to be a hit.
No, yeah, I think it is too, because it's following that Deadpool kind of feel where the villain is actually kind of narrating the story, but the villain is also in the story. So it's kind of like breaking the third and fourth wall a little bit. Yeah. So it's a very different feel that you're kind of used to. So those two have been very successful so far. So the DC TV has been good, but yet the movie franchise and movie universe that they're making is a freaking mess. Holy shit, dude. Do I tell? Oh.
No, it
is up in flames right now.
It's getting tough to watch from afar, or not even from afar, but just as someone who has always preferred the DC side of the comic books and shows and everything growing up, where I was, it's really tough to look into it and really see all of the struggles that they're going through. I mean, after Man of Steel, which wasn't exactly a critically acclaimed superhero film itself, but was one of the better ones.
Oh, yeah, it was phenomenal. That was a great movie to start a franchise with.
It was met with its fair share of criticism, but it wasn't anything to scoff at. It was Batman vs. Superman that really set the standard for controversy within a big superhero movie. And then it was Suicide Squad, and Wonder Woman was an exception, smashing everything critically and financially for DC. But then it was right back into it with Justice League and even Aquaman, which turned out to be better than most expected.
Much better than most people expected.
But the problems that are coming out is Ben Affleck is now officially out as Batman.
Which is a mess.
Which is awful, because as someone who was totally against his original casting, I couldn't say I was more wrong. He was fantastic. I totally bought into him being Batman instantly. I remember watching the first Batman vs. Superman trailer and seeing Ben Affleck as, I think at this point it was just Bruce Wayne, running towards the tower that was falling, and it was just, I was totally sold on everything about him from just the trailers. And so to see him leave the role after not really getting his own solo film is a bummer. I was really looking forward to seeing what he could do with the role, with with a few of his huge villains. I wanted to see what. I mean, I know there was a lot of even controversy about the Joker. I mean, we're seeing a Joker film come up with without Jared Leto, who, for all the controversy surrounding his portrayal of the Joker, they go to Joaquin Phoenix to play the Joker now, and
Yeah, that's an interesting decision on their part.
I'm for it.
Yeah.
For an individual casting choice and everything, but it doesn't make sense.
I feel like they just were so behind the 8 ball with Marvel that they literally just were trying to rush everything and pump out as many movies as they could, and they essentially got too far ahead of themselves, and they've hit a couple of hurdles that they weren't expecting. Like Henry Cavill sounds like he's going to be out as Superman.
Henry Cavill seems to be
Affleck's out at Batman, and that's what the entire franchise so far has been surrounded by.
Yeah.
That and Wonder Woman. Thankfully, Gal Gadot has been phenomenal in that role. She's stealing the spotlight for DC.
Unfortunately, she doesn't seem to be an overly featured cast throughout the other movies.
Right.
So there doesn't seem to be someone supporting all the other films.
Yeah.
Alex, you got something?
Riddle me this, riddle me that.
So who do you think is going to be the next Batman?
We're not there yet.
Okay.
I'm going with Army
Fuck
Hammer.
off for a little bit.
Army Hammer?
Rumor is Army Hammer, and I can totally dig it.
The pen is truly mightier than the sword. The pen.
Okay.
The worst.
Why are you here?
What is it about the wrong kind of man?
It's the car, right? Chicks love the car.
You're the worst.
Nice. Yeah, but apparently he sounds like he's rumored to take the role, and I think that's a pretty good fit.
Someone that I actually would have been all for if he wasn't just cast in a Marvel movie was Jake Gyllenhaal.
See, I'm not a fan of Gyllenhaal in that role.
I thought he would have done well just because he seems to be doing a lot more of those like noir-esque dramas that kind of feature a more. I don't know. I think he could do it. The last few things like was it Life with him and Ryan Reynolds and stuff. And,
a lot of people didn't like that. I actually liked
and
that.
things like that. I thought he could have done a.
Oh, what was the
really
one
cool,
with him and Amy Adams in it that was really good? Nocturnal Animals.
Nocturnal Animals.
That was a great
I
flick.
mean, go back to was it Prisoners or something with Hugh Jackman?
Prisoners. Yep.
I mean, I feel like he's on a good string of good films that I think he would have done a pretty good job as Bruce Wayne or as Batman, and that's my pick. Just if I'm picking one out of a name out of a hat that I know of, but yeah, that's someone I would have really liked to see. But what are you gonna do?
Yeah, but I mean, right now it's a total mess. So we'll see what happens. We have all these rumors flying around.
But DC has always also anchored themselves on Batman and Superman.
Right.
Look at all the movies prior to Man of Steel. I mean, it's all been Batman and Superman, Batman and Superman, Batman and Superman.
Part of the plan.
They've constantly
Well, their
rebooted
plan
everything.
sucks. I don't know. Nice find. That was a nice diamond in the rough there, Alex. But,
Everybody gets one.
Yeah. DC's plan is up in smoke at this point.
Because if you have to replace Batman, if you have to replace Superman, you just replace Joker. How does it work? I mean, because one thing that superhero fans have kind of gotten used to is some semblance of continuity.
Right.
Like, one thing that Marvel's always been really good at is making sure every film is linked.
Mm-hmm.
There's always something building to something else. And they make sure not to go against anything they've already set in place. And DC doesn't seem to have that big-scale oversight.
Well, the thing that really screwed them was they did a Justice League first.
Yeah.
So Justice League could have been your fix, where all of a sudden this is all them together, and then you branch off and the new cast have their new movies and stuff like that.
But
you
the
could sell
villains
that.
sucked, the CGI sucked.
Oh, God, yeah. Well, it's just
seemed
a
rushed.
letdown. Yeah, so DC, it's disappointing to see that they can't get their act together, it seems.
Yep, because they have so much potential with amazing characters that a lot of our generation grew up with.
Right.
More so than Marvel characters.
Yeah.
I
Well,
think, anyway.
It's a shame. It is a shame.
But yeah, so that's the bummer. I don't know what a quick fix would be. I mean, they could reboot the whole thing, but they have so many...
I think it's
They have
way too
so-
late now to reboot it.
They have so many films lined up. They have a Shazam one coming up. They have the Joker one
Well,
coming
the only
up.
one I could think
so
of
ready
was...
for Shazam.
Yeah, Shazam
That looks
ready.
interesting.
Shazam looks really good.
I was
really
out
good.
at first when I heard about it, but then when I saw the trailer, I was like, damn, that looks pretty good.
But here's the issue is if they just did these solo films from the beginning, they wouldn't have fucked themselves with the stupid films they rushed into early on.
That's true.
That's true.
Like
It's
Batman
because,
vs
yeah, they
Superman
rushed
was
into
rushed.
it,
Justice
completely
League
rushed into it.
was rushed. Suicide Squad was very okay.
Suicide Squad was good, though.
Suicide Squad was okay.
I'm with
I mean,
Ray. I
I
wasn't a
don't-
fan of Suicide Squad.
I don't like the Joker.
I don't like the
I
Joker.
don't know who that guy was.
No, that was garbage.
Jared Leto. We just
And I
talked
was
about it.
upset that they almost gave him his own movie.
No, they're making a Joker movie, it's just not with him.
Right.
It's a totally different.
They almost gave him the role.
They were going to if they felt he did a good job, but yeah, obviously he sucked or had a very weird portrayal of Joker.
No, I think it was.
Let's put a smile on that face.
Well, nothing will ever top Heath Ledger.
Heath Ledger's Joker is
Oh my god.
nearly perfect.
Well, I mean, it says it all when somebody who is playing a movie villain in a freaking superhero movie wins an Oscar. Like,
Right.
that tells you something.
Yep.
Like, he was phenomenal.
Pretty sure even Jack Nicholson, the guy who played Joker the
He was
previous
like,
time,
"Shit."
even felt he was amazing. I mean, that's amazing praise in and of itself, let alone...
And that's coming from Jack Nicholson, who's an Oscar winner himself.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's some serious praise.
Jack Nicholson, the actor, and the previous holder of the title.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's amazing. It shows what it takes to nail something like that. Because he
The
spent
level of commitment.
the commitment. I mean, he literally went into insane assignments. He talked, he watched, he looked at all of these different things of people who had these different like illnesses that the Joker kind of portrayed and the psychosis behind things.
He went too deep almost.
And he went
did.
too deep. Yeah, he got so invested in his role that he just got so deep and it was tough for him to snap out of it. So that just shows you the dedication, and it's a real shame to lose an actor like that because
Yeah.
not a lot of actors can do something like that. But
No, and yeah, and so just looking at that, like the Heath Ledger factor alone was an issue that was going to come up when Batman had a solo movie. I think that's what pushed Jared Leto to be so unbelievably different. Even if
Right.
it was considered bad, it was so different because he didn't want to be compared to Heath Ledger.
I think that too is they knew that they couldn't compare. That's the tough thing about him playing that role is it's the most iconic super villain
yeah.
in any franchise or any series or whatever.
Yeah.
But, you know, because it's the most iconic, you can never it's not like you're never going to see that character again.
Right.
So
Someone
it's
has to play
difficult.
them.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're kind of in a catch-22 because people want to see that character because they're the most notorious, but then you can't follow up what Heath Ledger did.
You can't properly have a Batman without incorporating a Joker somehow.
Right. And it's never going to be as good as Heath Ledger. So you're already kind of
Behind the eight ball.
behind the eight ball, yeah, which is tough. But, well, hopefully DC can figure this shit out because it's looking like a mess right now. So I guess we'll see what happens. So the next big thing coming out, Captain Marvel, coming out March 8th. So check it out. And thanks for watching. We'll catch
Thank
you
you.
next time.